said, hey, Hector, you're 100% right. Like what goes on, what you say goes on in there, goes on in there. Okay, the system recently changed. A few years ago, it changed. It is a disaster now. And this was the biggest lesson I learned, man.
Our next guest is going to bring us a whole different internal affairs point of view, a different lens, and also a different culture. That is because he served his law enforcement career inside maximum security prisons. This is a story of Hector Bravo, a correctional lieutenant and former tactical commander with over 16 years of experience. Hector wrote and published a book, Operation Yard Recall, an in-depth guide to working inside a correctional facility. One of several reasons why he decided to write his book was to provide and guide for safety and security, searching techniques, prison etiquette, and promotion tips. However, he also mentions in his book the following: I would have never imagined that the biggest threat to my safety and well-being would come from within. Suddenly, the bad guys didn't seem to be bad anymore. You see, one would expect bad guys to behave a certain way. You don't expect the people in charge of you to act worse than the criminals you are watching. So, without further ado, let's get this combo going with Hector and get to know him better. Welcome to Internal Affairs, a police podcast. Let's do this. Okay, super excited to be here today with Hector Bravo. But first and foremost, let's get our sponsors a big shout out. As you know, I'm a law enforcement instructor with the Savage Training Group for all types of training, including the internal affairs and officer-involved shooting investigation course. Go to the YouTube channel, and the link is there for that. Along that, we have the Titan Group, professional investigations, any type of investigations, whether they're workplace, firefighters, IAs, and other sorts of investigations. Get a hold of the Titan Group. Now we also have the briefing room. The briefing room is a quick 90-second lecture of what to do when you're out in the streets, and they give you really a lot of education as to the utmost stated new case law, I should say, as it relates to any type of police functions. You have to check them out. Again, the website and the link will be on the YouTube channel. And last but not least, check out the coins, patches for Code 4 products. You can also find them in the YouTube channel, and we're really thankful for having our sponsors. So without further ado, man, look, this is pretty interesting because you're going to take me back. I know one of our sections is a trip down memory lane, but you're taking me back to memory lane, and we were talking about this before we started recording about how, for whatever reason, I never really wanted to apply to the sheriff's department because certainly I didn't want to work in a correctional facility. You bring a whole different experience, right? You bring a lot of I'm very sentiment to your story because you did 16 years, and we'll get into that. And I'd really appreciate you driving down here and joining us.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, dude. Drive wasn't too bad. It was all good.
Awesome. So, like every other guest, we'll get going, man. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, rate the importance of internal affairs and why.
Importance, 10. Importance. And why? Because there needs to be a checks and balances within a department, law enforcement department, if applied correctly.
Let me ask you this, though, because this is what I've been wondering about internal affairs as it relates to CDCR or just any state penitentiary or any correctional facility, if I may. Who investigates the internal? I suppose it's all internal. Like there's complaints from inmates and there's also complaints from workplace employees.
Correct.
How does that work? Or if you can kind of touch on that a little bit.
Okay, the system recently changed. A few years ago, it changed. It is a disaster now. Before that, it was a simple kind of cut and dry an inmate will make an allegation of staff misconduct.
Okay.
It'll go through the supervisory channels, the managers, the captains, the associate. It can get shot to the warden of the institution, in what's called a 9899, so request for investigation. And there's California, North, South, and Central. Mm-hmm. There's 3 main Office of Internal Affairs offices for each, northern sector, central, and southern. The one southern is Rancho Cucamonga. They're based out of Rancho Cucamonga.
And so if it's like serious stuff, they're the ones that get it, or could it be handled in that particular facility?
If they warrant it, if the warden warrants it enough to be seen by Office of Internal Affairs, then it has that route to go through.
Oh, shit.
He can, of course, a hiring authority, which is a warden, has the discretion to dish out adverse action or any disciplinary action at his level that he deems, appropriate.
Right. And
in a perfect world.
And it's a disaster now compared to what you went through.
Oh my God. It's unbearable. Basically, since we're on the subject, a cop does something wrong.
Correct.
Or is alleged to have done something wrong. Maybe an excessive use of force during an incident. Mm-hmm. People, competent managers would look at the reports, look at the circumstances, and it is their job, even my job as a lieutenant, to address it at each individual level.
Right.
Well, it's easier for them, captains, associate wardens, chief deputy wardens, and wardens, just to say, let's just play it on the safe side and err on the side of caution. Let's forward it to the Office of Internal Affairs. Yeah. I can guarantee you that was 99.8% of the incidents at the prison that I worked at, Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility.
Wow.
So you can see how that can backlog Office of Internal Affairs from actual worthy investigations. It created a mess, man. It created a mess.
And this show is really all about lessons learned and takeaways. And I suppose the lesson learned here is, make a decision.
Correct. I was doing it at the lieutenant level.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to make a decision.
Yeah.
Them, they're just scared to make a decision.
Yeah, no, totally. I share your sentiment, because there's been situations, and I can tell you this big machine in LAPD where we have this border rights hearing process that's supposed to be for serious misconduct, but sometimes the powers to be on the levels of review, they get together and like, well, no, this is going to come back unfounded,
right.
And all of a sudden someone says, well, you know what? Let it just go to the hearing and let them figure it out. No, man, you make a lot of money and you have that leadership.
Correct.
Make that decision. Thank you for sharing that. Now, finish this sentence for me. As an internal affairs investigator, my job is to what?
Burn me. Burn a cop. And of course, I'm talking about the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation.
Okay. And when you say burn me, is that the culture of the experience?
For the last 16 years, for the last 15 years, in my experience, yes, absolutely.
I beg to ask, has there been any IA investigator that you have dealt with or experienced that was fair, impartial, and not biased?
I would more say that I knew my stuff, my policy, my documentation, where before I ever get into something, I already know how I'm going to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So I almost gave them no choice but to clear me, because I cleared myself prior.
Right.
By doing the right thing.
Right.
But if you're not savvy and you don't understand departmental policy or some of the tactics that they may utilize, a special agent, I can easily see how inexperienced officers get in a wreck, and get tripped up on their own words. And then it gets turned into, this officer is not participating in the investigation, which is a fireable offense.
Got it.
That's money. That's all day long.
Now, let me ask you this. What about just a violation like a policy or something like that?
They go for the juggler, man. They go for the juggler. So, they go for the juggler. And here's another caveat. 16 years, I saw a lot of trends in the department, right? I saw a lot of trends in investigations. Dishonesty, which is less than truthful. As a peace officer, it's a fireable offense, termination. Mm-hmm. We knew that. We knew that if you lied, you get fired. So what did everybody start doing? Started telling the truth. That caught administration off guard and Office of Internal Affairs, like, oh, what do you mean you gave him 2 extra hits when you weren't supposed to? Yeah, man, I gave him 2 extra hits when I wasn't supposed to, right? Because you can't get fired for unnecessary use of force or excessive, so just give me my licks or whatever.
Right.
Then when they realize, hey, these dudes are telling the truth now, they switched it up. They
switched it up to what?
To, hey, man, well, they'll ask you the same question 8 different ways until one of your answers doesn't match up with, technically, it's the same question. It was just asked 8 different ways, then they got you. Boom. Now you're failing to participate in an investigation. You're being less than truthful, and they just stack it. I hope what I'm saying to you makes sense, because that's truly what's happening.
No, I really, it makes a lot of sense. It makes me want to ask you what the culture was.
Now, when I told you the officers start telling the truth, right? Because when I came in 2006, there was a code of silence push. They called it the green wall, that, hey, and this is what the academy instructors, the sergeants hampered in us. Don't cover up for your buddies. Don't lie. Don't no code of silence. If you see something wrong, say it. And so I guess in the past, prior to 2006, there was a code.
Yeah.
And technically there still is. I'm not going to lie. If you have to work there for 30 years, it's probably not in your best interest to start pointing the finger at everybody.
Right. Start ratting people out.
Correct.
And be the Blue Falcon.
Your career is going to be horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I beg to ask, if you were a warden for the day and you were to pick and choose an internal affairs investigator, what kind of traits would you be looking for?
Integrity. A trait that I would be looking for is somebody that's not kissing my you-know-what.
Yeah.
Brown-nosing me, because I would be able to observe that. I would be able to observe, like, hey, I'm not looking for you. I don't need somebody to compliment me. I'll compliment myself.
Right.
Right? I need you to be a fair and impartial investigator.
Yeah.
And I can spot those type of individuals a mile away.
Okay.
Also, somebody that doesn't have a vendetta, something to prove.
Self-serving.
Hold a grudge. A fair dude, a fair female, somebody that's straight shooter.
Right. And has there been a situation where you have this, you have an investigator and they kind of know the person and they try to like cut corners or something along those lines?
So I made it a point not to familiarize myself with who the Office of Internal Affairs agents were. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's not something I want you to get familiar with, the process of, hey, I'm a regular under OIA investigations. Have I been under a few? Yes, but that is not something I wanted to get comfortable with. And, you ask anybody that's been under investigation, the nervousness in your stomach, I mean, you can't eat because your intestines are in a knot. You're wondering, like, how am I going to feed my family? Are they going to twist my words? Are they going to pin something on me? And trust me, they do all kinds of crazy things.
You reached a very, very good point as it relates to mental wellness. I know in 2006, or me 20 plus years ago, when you start talking about facing discipline and you're being alleged with all kinds of stuff, how do you go home and deal with it? And the stress is just unbearable, to the point where, me personally, I really feel like having these platforms to talk about stuff like this, what you're doing on your own, to really educate and make some awareness, hopefully can give somewhat of a coping mechanism to people who are listening and watching.
It's the worst, man. You just reminded me. It's the absolute worst. To have somebody allege that you participated in misconduct, that's kind of an attack. Not kind of. It's an attack on your character. It's an attack on your being, your integrity. I would honestly rather be physically attacked by an inmate than to have to endure the stress of being under an investigation, because when you just hit the nail on the head, man. I would go home. I have a wife. She sits there. I now have a 5-year-old daughter. She sits there. Yeah. A lot of employees do not go home and tell their families, hey, I'm under investigation. This can end all bad.
Yeah, no, totally. As a matter of fact, you probably go home and you don't want to say anything.
No, and it's freaking...
And you're dealing with all the stress.
Oh, my goodness,
yeah,
dude.
No, absolutely.
And I remember I told my mom right before I quit, there's a reason why I resigned, bro. It's just, I figured I had 12 years left. I'm like, there's no way I could run this gauntlet. Even though I know I'm not doing nothing wrong, I'm going to get got. Like, there's body-worn cameras now. People, like, And again, they were not utilizing the body-worn cameras for what they were enforced for.
That's interesting you say that. You know what, Hector? You said something when I was watching one of your episodes about the fact that you knew that you had all these years left to do, and you knew that you weren't going to work weekends.
Facts.
You know, and that hit home because I spent 20 plus years working massive amount of overtime to lead a certain lifestyle, and all it got me was a divorce and time away from my daughter. So I really appreciate the honest truth about how family and your health is so important. And I know that now in 2024, but I didn't know that because I was chasing the rabbit.
Well, you know, this is what I tell OGs like yourself and OGs like my father, and I call you guys OGs because you guys are the veterans of the game. I said, hey, man, this is 2024 now. There's other options. Yeah. There's YouTube, there's book, there's other options, there's Instagram. Back then, you guys had to do what you guys had to do. Yes. And my hat's off to you guys because you guys put food on the table. You guys endured it, because there really was no other choice.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I appreciate all that. You know what? I was going to ask you, we already touched on it, is that, the nicknames, the stigma, it sticks around. And, maybe you can share a little bit of the thoughts, like when you saw like the Department of Internal Affairs, when they came, oh man, those guys are the rat squad or, the dark side or, and that stigma, I know for law enforcement, and police, it exists, they're Blue Falcons, desk jockeys, captains, There
wasn't really any nicknames for the Office of Internal Affairs, I guess, if you can say, because they had that mystique to them. Uh-huh. They had that power to them. Right now, you mentioned like Rat Squad or something, and I laughed in my head because I'm like, nah, they passed the Rat Squad phase. They made it to Office of Internal Affairs. They're like chopping off heads now. They're like the executioner.
Oh, that's even worse. Snipers.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, they're sniping people. Yeah, no, man. Hey,
and that's a blanket statement, right? Because I've come across, especially doing what I do now, that have gotten at me through email, through text, and said, hey, Hector, you're 100% right. Like, what you say goes on in there, goes on in there.
No, absolutely. And you know what? You're definitely stronger in a sense of, the integrity as it relates to, hey, you know what? I don't want to be part of this, and there's something else that I can do, and your family is super, super important. Thank you for sharing all that. And now let's get into a trip down memory lane. So I know that you started the academy in 2006, and you said, in a couple of days or something like that, it would have been 17 years?
2 more days, I would have had 17. I graduated the academy March 16, 2007.
Yeah.
And today's March 14.
And awesome. 2015, you got promoted to sergeant, and then 2 years later, in 2017, you get promoted to lieutenant. And then in 2022, you pretty much said, I'm out. You resigned. Take me back. I was reading your book, and by the way, your book is right there. I took a read at it. If you haven't, you got to get it. Not because it's Hector and he's here and I'm promoting it. It's because it's actually a really good read as it relates to life in the academy. And what I like about it is that you do have a heading takeaways.
Right.
It's one of the things that I always wanted to do when I started this platform, this podcast, is all my guests, when you tell me a story, I just want to make sure that you give some takeaways and some lessons learned, or else, what is it that our audience is going to learn? So I did learn that you were in 16 weeks and you were sleeping in cells. What was that like?
Well, the academy I went to was in Stockton, California, 209. Okay. And it was a female prison that had been deactivated, meaning no prisoners there, but you had the parking lot, the way to walk in. You had, I forgot how many housing units, 4, uh-huh. The cells. I mean, it was a prison, and we slept in the cells. Luckily, we were single-celled, meaning one person per cell.
Right.
They took out where the sink and the toilet would be. Uh-huh. They removed those, and they put a wall locker so you could hang your jumpsuits and your boots on the bottom. I had just gotten out of the Army, uh-huh. So that was no big deal.
Right.
And I did a little stint in jail. I got in trouble when I got out of the Army. I did a beer run and got locked up for a week. So coming from those 2 experiences, I was snoring in my bunk.
And you didn't? Did you guys get to go home or?
Well, we had to eat in the culinary in the chow hall.
Okay.
They brought inmates from the closest prisons, real inmates from the closest prisons. They would do the landscaping. They would feed us. They would prepare the meals for us.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. So like, it was college Monday through Friday. You're off 8 to 4. I would drive home to Brawley. Frick, man, that was like an 8-hour drive there, 8-hour drive back every weekend.
Yeah.
Every
Now,
weekend.
get me out of this place.
And the reason that is because the buddy that I carpooled with had just had a daughter. So I could see now why he would want to go home every weekend.
Yeah.
Me, I was young, bachelor, dating at the time.
Yeah.
And
You're like, I'll stay here.
cruising with him, like
That's
breaking
awesome.
up the drive.
And then from there, you ended up at this. Where is this facility?
I
at?
ended up at Centinela State Prison,
Okay.
where I'm originally from, the Imperial Valley.
Okay.
And my father was a correctional officer there. He started in 1993.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you followed his footsteps.
Correct. Followed his footsteps. It's a small town. There's 2 prisons down there, Calipatria State Prison, which is Calipat, and Centinela State Prison. That was your typical level 4 general population, your level 3 general population, your max security, your pretty high end, gangsters, gangbangers, which I prefer all day long, bro, because I would eventually go to another prison that was pretty much a psych ward.
Yeah. And here you are, and I would imagine in everyday life, I shouldn't say in everyday life, but your everyday function at work, you must have seen and gone through a lot to the point where, you know what, at some point there's a promotion. And what was that like? Did you, did someone like guide you and kind of like said, hey, you might want to promote to sergeant, or what was that like?
So I joined the department at the age of 22.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had to gone to the age of 50 to retire and collect the retirement.
Right.
28 years. You could ask my wife. I initially said, I'm going to be a CO. I'm going to be a correctional officer for a knuckle dragger for 30 years, man. I'm not going to promote. I ain't trying to do all that. I don't want no responsibility. I'm cool where I'm at. That was the initial thought, right? Then you see other people promote over you, and you're like, oh, man, that guy's kind of a lame, fuck, I don't want that guy as my boss. So there was that bit of a, motivating factor.
Of course.
Along with the OG officers that I've had 15, 20, 25 years in, and they kept telling me, hey, youngster, you better promote, man. I regret not doing it when I first started, because now I would have been a warden by now. And that's true, because their peers were wardens. And they're like, look, right now you got nothing coming, man. You're on third watch with your days off are Tuesday, Wednesday. So third watch is 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And you got nothing coming. You're at the bottom of the seniority list. You might as well just promote and be at the bottom of the seniority list as a sergeant. And I had other sergeants tell me the same thing. And then the test, after 7 years, the exam came out. Mm-hmm. I took it. I interviewed a couple times, and then I freaking finally got picked up at that other prison.
And did you, when you got promoted, you went somewhere else?
Yes, I promoted to another prison. That happens. You could do that. You can promote at your local institution if they pick you up, or you can interview at other institutions, because there's 33 prisons in the state of California.
Correct.
So you can interview whenever they have openings and they fly a position. You apply, you go over there, you take an interview, and if they pick you up, they pick you up.
So here we are at a new facility, and you're a sergeant. I always said that a sergeant job is, I can tell you, I was a sergeant since 2007, so that'd be 17 years. Well, when I retired, it was 15 years. But I got to tell you, it's a great job, only because you get to really influence your subordinates, right? Your officers, and you're like the messenger to tell these subordinates from your command staff, your upper management, and I know from my experience in LAPD, you become like an expert in something, they'll leave you alone, bro.
Right.
You can hide and be a sergeant, and they'll leave you alone. What's that experience like, if you can share with us?
Promoted to a new prison, so gave me a fresh start. People didn't really know my dirt like I did. To keep it real with you, man, I was a young officer at 22 years old, all the way. Yeah, I was doing a lot of dumb stuff that dumb cops would do initially, right? I got a DUI 3 years into my career. So new prison, new place, brand new chevrons. Oh no, man! But I hit the ground running. That there was transgender inmates at this new prison. That was not something I was used to. So it was like all over, everywhere. You know, they're all flirting with me and saying, "Hi, Sarge." I'm like, "What the heck? Hell nah!" Like, right? Because everybody's watching my reaction, right? Because they know people come from other places,
Of course.
And if you come from a prison that's ran like a normal prison, this is like bizarro world. Like the stuff that you got mentally unstable inmates, and they're doing karate in the yard, they're just doing weird, talking to themselves, like Skid Row type of behavior, and downtown San Diego type of behavior. Mental illness, substance abuse.
Yeah.
So your boy gets there, and I'm like, oh, what the hell? I made a mistake. I made a mistake.
You feel like you were in a scene of a Walking Dead?
It was bad, dude. It was bad. And aside from that, way more dangerous because at a regular prison with regular gang members, there has to be a reason why they assault a correctional peace officer. They got to ask for permission. There's a chain of command, right? Unless there's a disrespect issue, then it kicks off then and there. At this new prison, these mentally unstable will go off on you for no reason, literally no reason. And I encountered that immediately.
Do you feel that faith has it that perhaps even God gave you this position to really get you a sense of maturity, leadership, and, here you are now as a sergeant and you have people that you're responsible for?
I think every experience I have had in my life, as messed up as some of them have been, bro, God purposely did it. Purposely.
Yeah. And in that sense, as a sergeant, now you have people looking up to you and... what was that like? Because you had to supervise. Okay, so let me tell you. I mean, I'm sure it's the same in LAPD. If anybody sees a new face, they're like, what's this guy about? Right? What's this guy a rat? Who is this guy? Yeah. He's wearing sergeant chevrons. We fuck him. We don't like him. Right? And I'm not dumb. I understand. I have good, high emotional intelligence. So I know how to read people and read environments. And I had the best leadership in the Army. The best. Guys that never utilize their rank for power, never utilize their title, their power. As a matter of fact, they would take off their top and go physically beat you up behind the building just to show you that they don't care that they're a sergeant. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that you guys are equals.
I totally get it.
So I had that mentality. Of course, I wasn't going around beating people up, but I wasn't thumping my chest. And this is... If you have to tell people you're in charge, then you're not in charge.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So I showed up. I shut up. I observed. I asked questions. Hey, why is this like this? What's this? What's this? What's this? And I did that for a solid year before I ever tried to give anybody any orders or directions.
Yeah, you have that style that they have some fancy word, adoptive leadership. I just call it, it's the buy-in. I'm like that too. When I was a sergeant, I'm like, well, I really don't know. And even if I knew, I still act like I didn't know.
You can give them a bone. You can try to help them come up to the answer.
Yeah, say, hey, you know what? I really know how to do this. Can you help me out? And get them to buy in.
Yeah.
So that way they know that you have like an open door to feel welcome. That hey, I can come to Hector, for some issues and some, and some problems I may have.
So I'll tell you a funny story about that. The yard that I was on was Delta Yard. The clinic was being remodeled for the inmates in the wheelchairs, making it ADA accessible. It was not only was it a psych ward, but it was a medical facility with wheelchairs and helmets and canes and it's everywhere, right? Something I was like, what the hell? It's like Mario Kart here. But so they were running the medication pill line out of the gymnasium, the gym. Well, they didn't have a gunner up there. And this was a level 3 S&Y. And the officer is a good officer, man. We're friends. We're buddies to this day, right? But initially, he tries to tell me as a sergeant that he's not going to have his officers be in there while the inmates are getting their pills because there's no gunner and it's unsafe. I said, check this out, man. I'm going to be over there. I'm going to be out there, right? We all have batons. If it cracks off, we're going to, handle our business.
That's right.
It's not that serious. But he was more pushing a line. He was a union rep, so he was more pushing to see. So it's like a little cat fight or whatever.
Testing you.
Testing. So anyways, he goes around the facility, gives me a thumbs down to everybody, right? This is how we gauge people in corrections. Like, they'll look at that guy and be like, is this guy good or bad. That's all it is. Thumbs up or thumbs down. If you get a thumbs down, we ain't messing with you. Like, we ain't talking to you. You're on walk alone status. So this guy goes around and gives me a thumbs down to everybody. Luckily, some other officers like, hey, man, he gave you a thumbs down. I'm like, fuck that dude, right? I don't give a fuck, right? Like, I ain't tripping. Like, I ain't trying to hear to fucking impress nobody. Like, dude's tripping over this. Anyways, fast forward. When you get to, like, that last answer, I'll tell you about, like, the worst day of my career.
Yes.
And he ended up, he ended up changing that real quick.
Oh, no, totally.
But it's that testing, man.
Yes. Always. It's, what it is. We have big egos.
Yeah, alpha males.
We're alpha males. We think we know everything. And you know what? Sometimes it's the saying, put your ego, check your ego at the door and just, be open to learning.
I just thought of something right now that
yes.
I probably never, because I like to think of like how the mind works, right?
Yes.
It's possibly a survival instinct. Like, hey, this is our so-called leader. Let's test to see if he's able to, come to a conclusion on this little incident. So
right.
when it really kicks off, is he going to have what it takes to help us?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. All good things must be tested, and that is true.
Yeah.
And, I can see it now. You're reflecting on that particular, time and that you had, and things come up, and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? Maybe it was for the better. And here's the deal: everybody learned because, as you said later on, to this day, you guys are the best of friends.
Yeah. I enjoyed being a sergeant. It was busy, man. You're still in the trenches with the troops. I enjoy the trenches.
2 years in, and you wake up one day and you say, you know what? I don't want to be a sergeant anymore. Or tell me, because you made lieutenant, man, and congrats.
Fuck, man, I never wanted to be a sergeant to begin with. Sure the hell didn't want to hang out at the sergeant rank. You're getting shit from all ends. The officers, the inmates, and your lieutenant. You're getting shit on. It's one of those ranks, right? Every other rank is a sweet spot.
Got it.
So officer's cool, sergeant sucks, lieutenant's cool, captain sucks, AW's cool, and so on and so forth. It's every other rank.
Here we are as a lieutenant. Talk to me. You woke up.
I fucking made it, man. Bought a good coffee mug. Got my Amazon Prime account. I was very familiar with policy and procedure, use of force. I knew use of force like the back of my hand.
That's awesome.
The policy, penal code, case law. That was the easy part. The hard part was the political monster, the political machine that I often speak about.
Were you at the same place when you made lieutenant, or did you go somewhere else?
Correct, same place.
Okay.
The warden had love for me. He showed me love. He promoted me twice, so I'm very grateful for that.
That's awesome. So here we are, and talk to me. You're a lieutenant. What kind of assignments did you do as a lieutenant?
Oh, my goodness, man. Those investigative. So an inquiry at the local level prior to going to the Office of Internal Affairs.
Okay.
So I would make a decision whether this warranted an OIA investigation. Well, let me tell you some of the stuff that was coming across my desk. Mm-hmm. An inmate would write with crayon on a piece of paper, last night, aliens came into my cell and raped me, period. Well, this is the first time you're ever going to hear this, man. We had to investigate thoroughly that claim. We had to interview the inmate. We had to do a search of the building to ensure there were no aliens. And if I didn't cross my T's and dot my I's correctly, the managers that we have and had at that time, they'll shoot it back for clarifications. Like, are we really wasting time, effort, resources for this crap? That's what it is, crap.
Well, I got to tell you, man, I was going to say, hey, you might want to come down and take my class, my internal affairs course, but you go to prove that no stone goes unturned.
Did you know that was a thing?
No, I just think that you're a very thorough investigator. That's what you should do. And
that's what you should do?
Well, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. It's almost as if you got to turn every single stone. And, and that's part of the problem. So I was being a little humorous and sarcastic to say, hey, man, I don't need Hector to come to my class because we teach at Savage Training Group to turn every single stone. And you're right. Some of the things are just ridiculous. And I don't mean to sound like a topper, but there is a story, which is true, it's accurate, it's not rumor, where back in 1997, after the Rampart scandal in LAPD, we had to take every type of alleged misconduct. And one of those
Right.
was actually some lady stole my ovaries. And we had to investigate. We actually had to do
I'm
a
glad
face
you're telling me that.
So when you were saying that, I was thinking, you know what?
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh yeah, of course. I'm glad that you did.
Well, it makes me feel better that the stupidity is everywhere. Sometimes you feel like, God damn, am I the only one that goes through this bullshit?
Oh, dude, bro. When you sometimes you walk in the front desk and they'll say like, from Mars, the aliens. There's an alien story in LAPD. I can attest to that. And I'm sure there's an alien story in some agency in the state of California.
Yeah, man. And I mean, again, another one, an inmate in the cell saying, hey, at nighttime, somebody's coming in between my walls and sending brain frequencies through the FM radio and telling me what to do. So, yeah, next thing you know, you got the maintenance guy looking through the walls and making sure there's nothing bad.
Wow.
But
what about if...
I'm glad the public now knows this.
No, absolutely. I'm glad we're touching on something that, it's...
So that was a duty. Also, I was now an incident commander. So when a incident kicks off, a riot, a stabbing, an attempted murder on a peace officer, a suicide, an overdose, now I'm the role of the incident commander. So more of a step back overall, collect everybody's reports, review them, put a nice little packet to shoot up the chain of command.
Command and control. You're it. You're the one out there guiding and directing and doing all that good stuff. And I know at some point you were a public information officer, PIO, man. Did someone just come at you and say, hey, were you voluntold or?
I think everything is a voluntold. I think every situation is a voluntold. They're asking you for a reason, right? They're not wasting their time. They're not asking you for them to tell you no, man.
Right.
And God forbid you tell them no.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was a unique time at the prison. It was during COVID. We had just had a new warden and a new chief deputy warden. And looking back in hindsight, they had the total backing of our headquarters, which is based in Sacramento. So they had a free pass to do whatever they wanted. And I'm being honest, and they did do whatever they wanted. And they did not come from a good place.
Was part of your job to kind of let the public know what's going on with COVID and inside or something along those lines, to give sound bites?
Nah, so when he asked me, it's almost like they were going down a list, right? Like nobody really wanted to work with this. I could equate this guy to Hitler. Style, narcissistic, egotistical, maniac. Like dude was out there. Kind of, he looks like Suge Knight. Okay. Yeah, and freaking... he calls me to the office, and they got the chief right there. The chief, female, she disliked me. She disliked me for whatever reason. She knew my mother. She knew my mom from back home, and she would always bring her up. I know your mom. And then I realized that she hated me. I even asked mom, like, did you pick on this lady back in, like, and she's like, no, I don't even, she's like, look through the yearbook, and she's like, oh, that's her? Like, we never, I'm like, trust me, mom, she hates me. Like, she really did, man, and vindictive and, condescending, the whole, bro, I was in a bad spot. So they're like, hey, man, have you heard that we're canvassing for certain lieutenant positions? I'm like, yes, sir. I still got that military bearing. Well, which ones did you hear? In service training, so in charge of the training. He's like, nope. ATM, in charge of the personnel hiring. Nope. And I drew a blank, dude. And I'm like, he's like, PIO. Public information officer. My jaw dropped, bro. I was like, phew. He's like, I'm asking you if you want to be PIO. Dude, then you want to talk about like voluntold. I didn't feel, I wasn't ecstatic. I said, yes, sir, I'll do it. And I'm like, I said, yes. He's like, you will? I'm like, yes, sir. Like, you know they're going to talk shit about you, right? And this is why I'm already like tripping. Like, man, that's so unprofessional for him to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I could give two fucks. Like, I said, I ain't even worried about that, sir. Like, I ain't even tripping. Yeah. He's like, all right. Yeah. And then I start, man. Initially, it was cool because I tell people, like, a woman in an abusive relationship, the husband doesn't start beating the ass on the first date, you know? Motherfuckers manipulate you and butter you up before they go in for the kill.
As you sit here today, right now, what is it, March 7th, 2024, having to reflect on the job as a PIO, how did you feel? I mean, did you learn something? Was it not that bad? Or I'm glad that they voluntold me, or what do you think?
Oh fuck! Holy shit! I mean, every experience in life has taught me something.
Awesome.
So what did I learn? I learned that PIO is an extremely busy job.
Yeah.
The phone never stops ringing. Everybody wants to know some type of information. I learned how to properly clear people into a prison. That's pretty cool. You have to do a CLETS background check. You have to run their, make sure they're not a previous felon. The paperwork. That's pretty interesting. That's something you wouldn't normally learn as a line lieutenant.
Of course.
And this was the biggest lesson I learned, man. When I was up in the front, I was a representation of the administration. I was part of the CAR. We call it the CAR, as part of that group, right? Well, you don't want to be part of a CAR like that. You technically, in hindsight, you don't want to be part of any car, man, because cars crash. Every car will crash. And I wasted a lot of my time going back to the officers and sergeants and my peers and telling them, hey, guys, like, I didn't change. It's still the same me. Because the rumors, Hector drank the Kool-Aid, Hector's part of the car, Hector changed, Hector's over here ratting. Just, oh, my God, they went crazy, right? And I had not even done nothing. Like, it just went rampant. And I wasted time. So basically, the lesson I learned is if somebody has their mind made up on something already, there's nothing anybody can do to change that.
Yeah, no, that's...
And I wish I hadn't done that. Wasted a lot of my energy.
Yeah, it's part of growth.
Yeah.
Right? It's part of maturity. I'll be the first one to tell you that when I went into internal affairs...
Oh, my goodness.
People were probably asking me like, But see, I always thought to myself that, well, this is a job, but really, is it that bad that people don't even want to talk to me? They think that, and I was a PIO as well, and I really enjoyed it.
Right.
But what I learned a lot was that the media will always sensationalize really controversial stuff.
Right.
And that's their job. I remember they'll call right when an OIS goes down. And one of the questions they'll ask is, can you please tell us what the gender and the ethnicity of the deceased, of the suspect was? And if you said, well, he was a male black. Oh, okay. Well, was the officer, what was the ethnicity of the officer? He was white. Oh, you know what? We'll be right there. So, and that to me just really bothered me. And more than anything, Hector, what bothered me the most is that for every bad controversial incident, we should have 2 or 3 real good incidents.
So, I totally agree with you 100%. And one thing you mentioned was, hey, it's just a job. Why are these people tripping, talking about our coworkers? But to some people, as you know, that's their life.
Yes.
That's why it was easy for us to walk away from a job. We weren't focused on title, position, or power. It's just, hey, it's a job, man. I can bounce. Yeah. To some, that's their everything. They will collapse without that.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with me being PIO at the time is that I was not given the ability to do my thing. I wasn't given the wings to fly.
Yeah.
You don't want to outshine the master, so to say. So he kind of kept me there in a little corner. Hey, don't rock the boat. Don't make any noise. You just sit there. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it kind of did knock the sails, the winds out of my sails. But like you said, it's just a job. Like, fuck it. You want me to sit here? I'll sit here.
Yeah. I mean, spot on. Outshine the master. I felt that way too, because the commander that hired me told me, hey, listen, whatever the chief does in English, you do in Spanish, because that's what I got hired to do, all the Spanish stuff. And I had the chief's calendar. I had a speaking point. So wherever he went, I went. And then, but he failed to tell me that he was processed to be chief of police back home in Wisconsin. So he left. And here comes a new captain. And they're like, no, you're sit where you're at.
Right. Absolutely.
And it happens. And that kind of sucks. Well, hey, man, at least we got that in common. And I appreciate you sharing all that. And I do know that you called it quits in 2022. What month, by the way? Because
December 1st.
December 2022. Yeah, I beat you to it, man. I did it in July. And I can say from just getting to know you and watching you is we definitely made the right decisions for the better, the better of your health, for the better of your family, and certainly the things that we're doing. And we'll get into that. what I'm interested in hearing how it all just said, you know what, bounce, I'm done, I'm out. Let's get into the tell me an IA story, man. I know that in your book, I was reading it, and it mentions something along the lines that you were to give an LOI, which you told me was a letter of instruction.
Correct.
It's kind of like an inquiry, or someone's got alleged misconduct saying,
Yes.
hey, I got to do this to one of my correctional officers, my COs, if you will. And at some point, you wrote an email you responded to your superiors and said, you know what, I'm not going to do this because there was some surveillance camera that in which they wanted to use to catch
Absolutely.
This particular accused employee. And you're like, you know what? I'm holding my integrity. This is a peace officer's Bill of Rights violation. And I'll take it down from there, and you can kind of just share with me, you know, a little bit of your IA journey.
So I told you political machine, right?
Correct.
There's different types of personalities and people in all walks of life. All walks of life, man. I'm sure you got at McDonald's ass kissers, rats. I'm sure you got, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like puppets that'll do anything the boss says, even if it's wrong. Type of people, right? So, yeah, man, in this case, I had already told the warden, send me back to the line. I don't want to be PIO no more. Send me back. I straight up told him. And he was so dumb. He's like, I'll let you keep cert commander, but you can go back to the line. Like I said, I was thinking you'd take that shit too. I don't really want to, you know, the SWAT team commander equivalent. So I'm on an A yard, and I had a buddy, a friend that I knew for those 16 years, and we used to work at another prison together, and he was doing acting captain. So he's acting in the position a rank above me.
Okay.
Technically, we're still lieutenants, right? He's just doing acting captain. He's one of those guys, man. He's one of those guys. Matter of fact, guess who let him borrow those acting captain bars? Me. Because I had a pair in my closet had I ever been asked to act, or if I decided to try to act or something. So he knew I had some, though. He came over to my house, and I gave them to him. The power went to his head. Plus, he wasn't the brightest, and I'm not even exaggerating. He's like, I need you to do this. Oh, you need me to, right? Like, okay. Hey, technically, he asked me, can you do me a favor? I said, what's the favor? What's up? I need you to do this other lieutenant's work. This other lieutenant is out on workman's comp. And I'm like, man. So that wasn't even my assigned post. I was just passing through like for the day or like 2 days. And then he tells me, I need you to review this officer's body-worn camera because it is alleged that he did misconduct. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, per the training that you just sent me yesterday, I shouldn't even be touching that, because there's a possibility that officer can suffer adverse action. That needs to go straight to Office of Internal Affairs. I'm a regular line lieutenant. I have never even been trained in investigations. I shouldn't even be looking at this. First of all, that's not why we got these cameras. And you're violating his POBAR rights and policy and procedure. It was a dick measuring contest, and being an acting captain, me being a lonely lieutenant, even though we had this history of friendship, quote unquote. I mean, him wanting to, and I held my mud, dude. There's no way in hell. Like a second, third time, I'm giving you a direct order, right? Dude hits me with a direct order. I'm like, oh, all right, man, cool. So I did a couple little tactics, right? I emailed everything, documented. If you didn't document it, it never happened.
Yeah, no, totally.
So I documented, I send it, and I said, how much of the video footage do you want me to review? He's like, the whole 8 hours. I said, Captain, the whole 8 hours. You want me to sit here at my desk for a whole 8 hours and watch this video footage when all my assignments are stacking up, I'm having incidents? You see how there was no back planning? It was just shooting from the hip retardedness? Yeah, 8 hours. So first time I go through it, I didn't find nothing. He's like, look again. Oh my God. Look again. I don't know what the hell they were doing, man. They were going nuts. So push came to shove. He tells me, you're being insubordinate. You're going to do this. And I'm like, all right, cool. Because I could already see it was getting there, right? It had already gotten awkward.
Correct.
So when I go to do it, man, literally, I swear, it erased from the cloud. it erased from the cloud. And I did catch him cussing at the inmate. I did find it. And I told him, I found it, right? He goes, cool, now process the investigation. I'm like, that's what I'm not doing. I should have not even been looking at that camera. And then when it finally came, it was gone, bro. It was literally gone. And I let him know it was gone. Oh, they put me under investigation. They put me under investigation through OIA for insubordination and like trying to cover up. Yeah, failure to perform my duty to the supervisor. And I'm like, oh, you guys are fucking crazy. So it went there. When it came back, I guess it was deemed that I was just unprofessional.
Right.
Not all the stuff they were saying.
No discipline, no misconduct. Exonerated?
I got an LOI. So I took a hit for that officer in a way that I what would I like to do, man? Violate his pole bar rights, get him on something that he didn't have coming? Like, there's a process for everything.
Right.
Right? We can't circumvent the process to try to get somebody in trouble.
100% spot on. In listening to the story, yeah, you're going on a fishing expedition to watch body-worn video. Okay, so let me get this straight. So you want me to watch body-worn video? Well, hell, we might as well just do it for everybody else.
Correct.
It's like you're setting the precedent.
Correct.
So the next time someone tells you, I think there's something happened, go check. No, you know what? It's someone said something along the lines like, and I'm just throwing out a scenario here. Someone said, hey, Hector, you know what? This inmate said that this CO threw him up against the wall and C-clamped him while he was in his cell.
Right.
Okay.
That's a process, and it'll go through the process.
Roger that. I'll go, and you know what? You want to check about it? Because that's like serious misconduct.
Right.
But to be looking and just going to Phoenix expedition for something, say, true definition of what we call a blue falcon, and I am a true believer, and I always say this, is that there's always one blue falcon in every single department, and in this case, a correctional facility.
One, I can tell you of 150. Why do you think I left? One. Oh man, don't ever come to the California Department of Corrections. No, it's literally the crab in the mentality. Crab in the bucket mentality. And I came to realize why they operate like that. Because you're a product of your environment. Yeah. If you're around inmates that are physically harming each other and trying to kill each other, you start adopting their behaviors, their ways. But since we cannot physically kill somebody on the job, you character assassinate them. You spread rumors, gossips, you tear them down, right? And it's vicious, man. They know it too because they agree with me.
Before we move on to the next segment, Hector, I got to ask you, did you feel come 2022 you were so consumed by this culture and by this way of life that to the point where, you know what, this is just not me. I feel like I'm in a whole different world. Can you share a little bit about that? Or
my hair, I had a bald spot, dude, like from the stress. Yeah. My dad thought it was hilarious. I didn't think it was hilarious, right? Like my barber knew about it, and it's just very unhappy, man. Very unhappy, and that's putting it lightly. Short-tempered, short with my spouse. That's what the caveat was when I had my daughter. She was 4 at the time, and she gave me this look, dude, that like caught me off guard. I caught it. She gave me this look of like concern, almost like scared of me, like. And I said, oh, fuck, no, it has to be the job, man. It has to be the job. Yeah. Like she sees something in me that's not right. And you say it like you hit the nail on the head, dude. It's an upside down world. I don't operate like that. I don't operate on the backstabbingness. Like if you got a problem, I'm not one about confrontation, but I'm also not one about like going behind my back and trying to sabotage me.
Yeah, that's just not in you. And, you know, I'm certain that your colleagues and to this very day appreciate your character and your integrity. And I thank you for sharing all that. Look, best and worst is the next segment, and let's go with worst. You know, worst is always first because I hate ending on a note, on a real bad note. So, why don't you kind of share with us, you know, what was the worst incident, worst that happened in your 16 years?
The worst, I think of the worst incident, and that's when I had 1 month, 2 months as a sergeant. I told you I hit the ground running. Mm-hmm. Told you Delta Yard at Donovan, the mental health program, a mental health facility, psych ward, pretty much. There was an inmate that tied a knife to his hand, a homemade weapon, with a sheet, with a bed sheet. He ripped it apart. He did it around the wrist, interlaced it between his fingers, so that when it went like this, it wouldn't drop. So now he had a weapon, kind of like Edward Scissorhands, man. Mm-hmm. And he stabbed one of the officers in the building, hit him. The officer was sitting down. He comes. He was high on meth for 5 days. Spun out, fucking crazy, lifer. Hit the cop, hit him right here in the vest, pushed him out of the chair, realized what's happening. The officer comes up, draws his baton, utilizes deadly force on the inmate, because it's a deadly force encounter, cracks him on the head, boom, drops him, but he pops right back up because of the meth. Then they hit the alarm. And I'm a brand new sergeant, man, and it's 8 p.m., supposed to be off in 2 hours. It was like a Sunday. And I'm pretty in shape, so it was a far run, but I'm like, hey, it's 8 p.m. Something told me to run, right? Go respond. So I ran over there, and as soon as I walk in, I see a doggy pile at the podium, which caught me off guard, man. I had my baton drawn already, because that's what I learned at the other prison. You draw your baton prior to coming into the housing unit, so they don't ambush you, right, in case it's an ambush. Mm-hmm. And then the officer yells, "He stabbed me, Sarge, he stabbed me." And then, like, I look, yeah, the dude had a knife, a shank right there. Like, his hand was exactly down like this, and I just came down, boom, with a monotone baton, the power safety tip, broke his forearm, comes back like this, and then that's when the officer yells, "He has it tied to his hand." Like, oh, fuck. You have to realize, dude, I was not mentally prepared for this. So I just proceeded to stomp the dude out. Like, I was in the military. We did a lot of stuff in Iraq, like how to, raiding houses and stuff. So I kind of learned how to defend myself and or put in work in a way. Plus, this was all within policy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's coming in. Everybody's doing what they're doing, utilizing physical force, punching the guy, stomping the guy. And the dude is a threat until we can get that weapon out of his hand, right? Because he's still flinging it around. And all it takes is whoof.
Oh, absolutely.
Or right here. So we have a pair of shears up at the top. We get it down. We cut that off. We put him in restraints, and then, oh, dude, I was a sergeant, man. That was a long night. I know we were talking earlier, you talked about a 28-hour shift. That was a long night, man. And imagine that one sergeant or that one officer that gave me a thumbs down that following day was like, "Hey, this sergeant's the best," right? Just because they heard.
Legit.
Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, I already knew what I was about.
Of course.
But, they didn't know who the fuck I was. And neither did that inmate, apparently. Yeah. But, and he sued me. The inmate sued me. Uh-huh. And in the lawsuit, it said that he was minding his own business in his cell, that I went up there and beat him up for no apparent reason.
Yeah, of course, the lawsuit didn't go far.
Correct.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Best. Tell me something that you accomplished, the best on the job, or something that...
So every time they ask me this and I reflect back, it was graduating the hostage negotiator course, crisis response team, hostage negotiations. It's pretty much the FBI course. Dude, it was fun. It was extremely challenging. It was, oh, man, dude, you learn how to play chess with people's minds, dude, and get in there and just wear it down, and it's draining. And ultimately, the outcome, you hope for a positive outcome, right? Mm-hmm. Not a peaceful resolution. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. Nobody wants to shoot it out. Nobody wants to fight it out. I mean, you know that. That's how people get hurt. That's how people get killed.
Yeah.
If you can talk your way out of a situation, that's golden. So I was felt accomplished because it wasn't like one of those examinations in the department where, hey, here's the test, but here's the answers right here. Yeah. No, there was no answers, man. You had to know your material.
Yeah. Very challenging.
Extremely, man.
That's awesome. Good for that. Tell me a little bit about the book, why, and what's going on with it.
Prior to me leaving the department, I didn't tell anybody I was going to leave, right? You don't want people to sabotage your plans. You don't want the spread like wildfire. Mm-hmm. But I did tell one person, a peer of mine, I trusted him, and rightfully so. And he's like, well, if you're really going to leave, man, you should write a book. You should write a book for all the things that you train us with, because I used to pull people aside and kind of give them scenarios and train them just to help the whole cause so we don't get in a wreck, And he's like, put that in a book. I'm like, all right. And I just started typing away, man. I downloaded a book software writing program, but what I tell people is those are the lessons that were passed down to me by the OGs at Sentinella. Mm-hmm. And I'll always give credit to them, man. I always respect the people that came before me because they paved the way.
Yeah. It's a good read, man. You know, if I lean over,
yeah.
I don't mind trying not to put on my glasses. And what really stuck out to me is I saw something here, and this is pretty interesting, is I work for the third largest law enforcement agency in the nation. This book will help you navigate through a system of toxic leadership, political agendas, and incompetence on all levels, reaching the point of corruption. This is what I found interesting, this paragraph. I would never have imagined that the biggest threat to my safety and well-being would come from within. Suddenly, the bad guys didn't seem so bad anymore. You see, one would expect bad guys to behave a certain way. You don't expect the people in charge of you to act worse than the criminals you're watching. That is so powerful for me to tell you that.
I forgot I wrote that in there. That's the truth, man. That is the 100% truth.
Right. To me, as we summarize this, and I thank you so much for coming, I learned so much about the culture, leadership, and how you were just so consumed in a world that you probably didn't even expect. Then you have these IAs, which is something we haven't talked about, right? You haven't done that in other appearances. Correct. And I appreciate that because I think that's super important because we all know that even in your experience in a correctional facility, something's going to go wrong. You said that earlier. You know, something bad's going to happen, or someone's going to do some stupid shit or whatever. Right. And at times you do an inquiry, or you're going to forward it to Officer of Internal Affairs and say, hey, man, this is some serious shit. You guys need to look at it. So I always felt it's a complete 10 because you need oversight and you need the checks and balances.
Right.
Hey, man, it's the end. I'm going to leave the floor up to you. What would you tell a young officer or whoever's watching and whoever's listening to try to get into law enforcement, and what kind of advice would you give them, man?
For the youngsters out there that I want to make the money, I want to make the benefits, right? That is one part. That is one aspect. However, you have to understand the world that you are about to embark in and get on is a very, and I don't want to sound sadistic, but it's an evil world out there, man. If you're not mentally prepared to fight for your life at the drop of a hat, at the drop of a dime, you need to reconsider and or take up some extra training on your own time, because any department does not give you the required amount of training to keep somebody alive. And they just go through the motions like, here's your 8-hour block, check.
Check the box.
Check the box. So you don't want to be a liability. You, of course, maintain your professionalism, your demeanor, courtesy. But at the same time, man, I watch too many YouTube videos now in 2024 of cops hesitating and dying because they're afraid of public perception. They're afraid of they're going to get fired. They're afraid of what the chief's going to do. They're afraid that the city's going to riot. And really, what should you be worried about? Surviving the fight. And you have to have that mentality. And if you know policy, and if you're competent in your training, you really shouldn't have an issue with performing to the best of your ability within policy.
Amen to that. I echo that. You do have a YouTube channel. Yeah. So what do we do? So what are we doing, man? I know you're like me. I told you earlier that enjoy 5 years old. Between 5 and 7, they're still cute. Right. I can tell you from experience, come 13 when they turn teenagers, stand by, man, because it's all downhill.
I'm tracking, bro. I'm tracking. So, yeah, man, I wake up every morning at 3 a.m., drink my coffee, and then I jump right on my YouTube channel, That Prison Guard, and I just start spewing at the mouth, man, truth. You either love me or you hate me or both, man, but it's entertaining, I guess.
Yes.
And then, I work out and just watch my daughter, technically a stay-at-home dad, man. It's cool.
I would venture to say that a lot of people love you. I certainly am happy that you came down to share these conversations with me. And brother, you know what? You gained a friend. We will always be attached, whatever you need. I'm going to take a trip down to San Diego.
Yep.
I'm teaching in San Diego soon, so you definitely, I owe you a visit, or you owe me a visit. Let's get together.
Let's do it.
And build from upon, man. Thank you so much for being here, Hector. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, dude. Thank you.
Right. And on that note, you know what? Please be safe, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.